Apply your skills EX04-A03. Work with formulas and functions. Step 1. Start Excel and open EX04-A03-Net Profit from the Excel 2013 Lesson 4 folder. Use AutoSum to add the revenue in cell F4. Now the AutoSum function will automatically decide what range of cells to use for the function. If it chooses the wrong range, you can reselect it yourself. Here I'm showing how to reselect a range. Note, it is the same range as AutoSum initially picked. Okay, now creating formulas. Step 3. Type a formula in cell B10 to sum the costs for Q1 in column B. First, you need to determine what cells you need to sum. The cost cells for the Q1 column are B6, B7, B8, and B9, or the range B6:B9. Now you can type in your sum formula, equals B6 plus B7 plus B8 plus B9. Or more simply, equals sum B6:B9. Step 4. Autofill the quarter headings in row 3 and the total costs formula in row 10. Select the first cell by the drag handle and pull to the right. Use cell references in formulas. Step 5. Use a formula to calculate employee costs in cell B6. We will create a formula that multiplies the revenue for the column, cell B4, by a percentage, cell B15. This formula gives us the cost of paying our employees. That's 18% of revenue. The formula will be somewhat complex because we want to minimize our work when we copy the formula to other cells in the worksheet. We will use absolute and relative cell addressing to keep us from having to adjust each copied formula to point to the correct cells. Okay, back to the formula. Employee costs will equal revenue times percentage, or in relative addressing terms, in cell B6 we type equals B4 times B15. If I now autofill this formula to the right, you'll see that the formula returns 0 for the other columns. This is because the autofill command increased the cell column values as the cell copied to the right. We didn't want this to happen, so we need to adjust the formula. Back in cell B6, I changed the formula to equals B6 times $B, $15. This will tell the autofill command to not change the column or row for the percentage portion of the formula. Now when I autofill to the right, the formula works correctly. Undo the autofill cells. This step isn't supposed to be completed until later. Step 6. Copy the titles in the range A6 to A9 to the range A15 to A18. Step 7. Use formulas to calculate the other costs in the range B7 to B9. Each formula should multiply the revenue in row 4 by the related cost percentage in rows 16 to 18. There are two ways of completing this step using absolute and relative addressing. You can create a new formula individually in cells B7, B8, and B9, or you can use mixed referencing in cell B6 and autofill it down. Let's do both. First, the individual formulas. In cell B7, we need to calculate revenue times capital expenditures. So we type equals B4 times $B $16. Continue this in the other cells. In cell B8, type equals B4 times $B $17. In cell B9, type equals B4 times $B $18. These formulas will properly autofill to the right later on in the assignment. Now let's do the mixed referencing option. Clear the formulas in the range B7 through B9. Select the formula in cell B6. Now let's stop and think for a moment. The formula in cell B6 is basically the same formula we're going to use in cell B7. Except we need to refer to cell B16 instead of B15 for the percentage. This is an increase of 1 row. When we use autofill, it increases relative addresses, or decreases if you pull up or to the left. So, we can set the row portion of the percentage address to relative. We're going to leave the column portion absolute, because when we autofill to the right, we don't want the column value of the percentage portion of the formula to increase. So we change the formula in cell B6 to equals B4 times $B $15. If you autofill this down, you will see the autofilled cells reference the correct percentage cells. But the revenue portion of the formula isn't working now. So undo the autofill. This didn't work because when we autofilled down, the row value for the revenue portion of the formula increased. We need mixed addressing for this portion as well. We need to keep the row absolute, but let the column be relative. The final formula for B6 is equals B $6 times $B 15. If you autofill down now, the formulas work correctly. Wow, this method seems much harder than the first, doesn't it? But if you learn to use mixed referencing properly, it can save you immense amount of time typing new formulas. Step 8. Calculate the net profit in cell B13 as gross profit times 1 minus tax rate. This formula requires proper use of absolute and relative addressing. Since we are only going to autofill to the right, we can leave the row portions of the formula as relative. We need to think about the column portion though. As we autofill to the right, relative addresses increase. We want the column value of the gross profit portion of the formula to increase. But we also want the column value of the tax rate portion to not change. Thus, the following formula in cell B13 equals B12 times 1 minus $B 19. Note, we could also use equals B12 times 1 minus $B 19. But this absolute addressing isn't needed since we are not autofilling downward. Modify and copy formulas. Step 9. Modify the formula in cell B12 to calculate gross profit as revenue minus total costs. Simply change the formula to equals B4 minus B10. Step 10. Copy the range B12 through B13 to the range C12 through F13. Step 11. Copy the formulas in the range B6 through B9 to the range C6 through E9. Now save the file and submit it. The rest of this assignment steps do not need to be completed.